In the quiet village of Insunka, where red earth met golden sunsets, there lived a woman named Abina, kind-hearted, strong, and full of quiet grace. She had 3 children, each born under a different season: Kojo in the rains, Efua in the harvest, and little Kwaku beneath the dry Harmattan wind. But though her children were blessings to her, the people of Insunka saw them differently. They said the children were cursed, born of bad omens. No father, no blessing, the women would whisper at the river as they washed their clothes. Their mother dances with spirits, the men would mutter at the marketplace, turning away when Abina passed. Her children were mocked every day, called names that cut deeper than knives. Ghostborns, the other children shouted, river spawn, witches brood, and yet Abena never raised her voice, nor cursed them back. She only told her children, when the world calls you names, remember who you are. Names do not make you, your heart does. But inside, her soul carried a pain too heavy for words. Every night, after the children had slept, she walked to the old baobab tree at the edge of the forest and knelt there, whispering to the spirits. Why do they hate what they do not understand? She cried. One night, as the moon glowed red like fire, a wind rose from the forest, and a voice answered, low and ancient, because they see light where they have none. Abina gasped and looked up. A woman stood before her, shimmering like water, her eyes glowing like stars. Who are you? Abina whispered. I am Asa, the river spirit, the woman replied. You are not cursed, Abina, you are chosen. But the world fears what it cannot name. Abina trembled. Then why must my children suffer? The spirit's eyes softened, because the fire inside them will change the world. And every flame must first endure the darkness. Before Abina could speak again, the spirit reached out and touched her forehead. When the last moon of the rains rises, they will see who you truly are. Then, as suddenly as she appeared, Asa vanished into mist, leaving behind only the faint scent of river lilies. The next morning, Abina awoke, feeling a strange warmth in her chest. Her children ran to her, laughing, their laughter sounding like music she had never heard before. But far away, in the chief's compound, the elders gathered, whispering about the strange light that had been seen near the forest. The woman plays with forbidden things, one said. If she brings the spirits here, we will all pay the price. And so it began, a fear that would grow like wildfire, threatening to destroy not only Abina's peace, but the destiny of her children. Still, that night, under the stars, she smiled quietly and whispered, let them call us names. One day, they will know what those names truly mean. The day began with laughter, drums, and sunshine, but it ended with tears that stained the ground darker than rain. The annual harvest festival had come to Insunka, the time when every family brought forth their best yams, their brightest cloths, and their proudest children to dance before the chief. Abena dressed her children in clean white cloth and led them to the square, her heart filled with quiet pride. Walk tall, she told them. Let no one's words make you small. But as they entered the crowd, whispers rose like a storm. The other mothers pulled their children close, muttering prayers under their breath. There she is, the witch's brood, one said. Keep your sons away before her curse follows them. Still, Abina smiled, holding her children's hands tightly. The drums began to beat, and one by one, the children of the village danced. When Kojo's turn came, the drums faltered for a heartbeat, and then, as if touched by something divine, he began to move with a rhythm that silenced the crowd. His feet struck the dust with fire, his body flowed like water, and his laughter rang out like a song. Even the chief leaned forward, surprised. "The boy dances like the wind itself," he murmured. But before anyone could speak, a voice shouted from the crowd, "Of course he dances like a spirit, because he is one." The laughter that followed was cruel. A group of boys began to chant, "Ghostborn, river child, witch's son." Kojo froze. Ifua's eyes filled with tears. Abena stepped forward, her voice trembling but strong. "Enough. My children are not cursed," the women sneered. "Then where is their father, Abena? Did he rise from the water to—" The crowd erupted in mocking laughter, and for the first time, Abena felt the sting of helplessness cut through her pride. The chief banged his staff on the ground, silencing the crowd. "Respect the woman," he ordered, "but let her prove her words. Tomorrow we will ask the spirits. If she lies, her curse will be revealed." Gasps filled the air. Spirit trials were rare, dangerous, and often deadly. That night, Abena sat outside her hut, staring at the moon as her children slept. Her hands trembled, but her heart would not yield. "You can shame me," she whispered, "but you will not break me." From the darkness near the river, a soft light flickered. The spirit, Asa, appeared once more, her form glowing like moonlit mist. "They will test you," she said gently, "but the truth does not fear fire." Abena's voice cracked. "What if I fail them? What if they take my children?" The spirit reached out and touched her tears. "Do not fear, child of light. Tomorrow their words will turn to dust, and the names they throw will become crowns." As dawn approached, Abena gathered her children and wrapped them in cloth the color of dawn. The village drums began to sound low and ominous, calling her to the trial. The whole of Ensunka gathered by the river, where truth and lies were said to be divided by the gods themselves. Abena looked down at her reflection in the water and whispered, "Let them see me for who I am." The ripples answered with a soft glow, and she stepped forward, toward her fate, her shame, and her destiny. The morning sun rose over Ensunka village, painting the river in gold. But its beauty did little to calm the storm in Abena's heart. Villagers gathered along the riverbank in silence, their faces hard with judgment. The air was heavy with incense smoke. Drums beat slowly like the heart of an ancient god. And the chief's voice carried across the water, commanding attention. "Abena, daughter of Amma, you stand accused of bearing cursed children. If the river accepts your truth, you will live free. But if it rejects you—" His words trailed off as the crowd murmured, for everyone knew what rejection meant. The river would claim her forever. Abena stood tall, her children clutching her legs. She looked down at them and whispered, "Do not be afraid. The river knows our truth." The priest stepped forward, his eyes painted white with sacred ash, and handed her a calabash filled with river water. "Drink," he ordered, "and speak your truth." The crowd leaned closer as Abena lifted the bowl. Her hands trembled, but her voice did not. "My children were born not of curses, but of love and mercy. If I lie, may the river take me." With that, she drank. The water was cold, alive. She felt it burn her throat like fire, then settled deep within her chest. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the wind shifted, and a strange silence fell. The river began to glow faintly, shimmering like liquid moonlight. The villagers gasped. "Look, the spirits are awake," someone cried. From the center of the river, a shape began to form, a woman of pure light, her eyes as deep as eternity. It was Asa, the river spirit, the same who had saved Abina long ago. "Abina speaks truth," the spirit's voice echoed, rippling through the air. "These children carry no curse, they carry my blessing." The villagers fell to their knees, some crying, others trembling in disbelief. The chief dropped his staff. "The spirit speaks," he whispered. But not everyone bowed. From the back of the crowd, the old midwife, who had long hated Abina's courage, shouted, "Lies! She has bewitched even the spirits." With a furious cry, she threw a charm into the river, black smoke rising as it struck the water. The glow dimmed, and Asa's form began to fade. The water churned violently, as if angry. "Foolish one," the spirit's voice thundered, "you seek to twist what is sacred. You have brought your own curse." The river exploded upward, sending waves crashing onto the shore. The villagers screamed and scattered. When the chaos settled, the old woman lay unconscious, her charm turned to ash in her hand. The water calmed again, and Asa's faint whisper drifted through the mist. "Abina, walk in light. Your children will rise where others fall." And then she was gone. Abina stood in silence, her wet clothes clinging to her body, her children staring wide-eyed. Slowly, the chief approached her and bowed his head. "Forgive us," he said quietly. "We were blind." The people murmured in shame. Abina took her children's hands and walked away without a word. She did not look back. As she disappeared into the trees, the whispers began again, but this time they were not of mockery. They were of awe. "The river chose her," someone said. "Her children are marked by the divine." Days turned into weeks after the river trial, and the story of Abina and her children spread far beyond the borders of Ensunka. Travelers, traders, and even chiefs from distant lands spoke of the woman whose truth was defended by the river itself. In the village, shame turned to reverence. Where once there had been mockery, now there was cautious respect. But Abina did not seek their approval. She only wished for peace. Yet peace was not to come easily, for destiny had marked her children for greatness. Kojo, her eldest, began to show strange gifts. When he sang, the winds shifted, and the trees seemed to dance. Ifwa, her daughter, could heal wounds with herbs that no one had ever seen before. And little Kwiku, though only a child, could sense when danger was near. The villagers whispered again, but this time their words were filled with wonder, not hate. "They are blessed," the women said. "The river's touch runs in their blood." One day, while Abina was tending her crops, the chief's messenger arrived, his horse covered in dust. "The chief requests your presence," he said. Abina hesitated, but followed. When she arrived, the chief sat surrounded by his elders, his expression humble. "Abina," he began, "our lands have not seen rain for 7 moons. The fields crack, and our wells are dry. The priests have failed. The people believe your children carry the blessing of the river. Will you let them call upon the spirit?" Abina's heart tightened. She had promised herself she would keep her children away from such burdens. "They are only children," she said quietly. But Kojo stepped forward, his young voice calm. "Mother, the river chose us. We cannot turn away. with tears in her eyes. Abina nodded. That evening, the entire village gathered by the same river that had once been her place of shame. Kojo stepped into the water, Ifua and Kweku by his side. The villagers knelt, watching as the children raised their hands. Kojo began to sing a song no one had ever heard before, soft and haunting, the language of the wind and water. The river began to glow once more, swirling around their feet like living silver. Ifwa sprinkled herbs into the current, and Kwiku whispered prayers only the spirits could hear. The sky darkened, thunder rolled across the horizon, and then, as if the heavens themselves wept, the rain began to fall. First gentle, then fierce, washing away months of dust and despair. The villagers danced, crying out with joy, "The river has forgiven us. The children are the spirit's gift." As rain poured over her, Abina fell to her knees, overwhelmed by gratitude. She looked toward the water, and for a fleeting moment, she saw Asa's reflection, smiling, radiant, watching over them. The spirit's voice echoed faintly in the thunder. "You suffered for truth, and truth has made your children light." That night, the village celebrated like never before. Drums pounded, fires roared, and songs of praise filled the air. But even amid the laughter, Abina felt a quiet unease. She knew that gifts from the spirits were never given without purpose or price. And as she watched her children dance beneath the rain, she whispered to herself, "May their light never draw darkness to them." Months passed after the miracle of rain, and Insunka village flourished again. Fields bloomed, rivers overflowed, and the people who once mocked Abina now sought her blessings. Her children had become symbols of divine favor, and yet deep within her, Abina felt the whisper of unease growing stronger each day. It began one night when the moon disappeared behind the clouds, and the air turned cold and still. Kojo awoke screaming from a dream of shadows rising from the river, calling his name. Ifua's herbs began to wither, no matter how carefully she tended them, and little Kweku spoke of voices whispering in the dark. Abina prayed by the river, begging Asa for guidance, but the water was silent, its glow gone. Then came the travelers, strangers dressed in black, carrying charms of bones and ashes. They claimed to be priests from the northern lands, sent to honor the blessed children. But when they entered the village, even the animals grew restless. "We wish to see the ones touched by the river," their leader said, his eyes gleaming like oil. Against her instincts, Abina allowed them to stay, but that night she could not sleep. Strange chants echoed from their hut, and she saw shadows moving without light. At dawn, the villagers gathered to welcome the priest's blessings. But when the leader raised his staff, the river behind them began to boil. "The spirit's gift belongs to us," he hissed. The people gasped as black mist spread from the water, crawling across the ground like smoke. Abina grabbed her children and shouted, "Run!" But Kojo froze, his eyes glowing faintly as if the spirit within him had awakened. "Mother," he said softly, "they seek to steal what was never theirs." He turned toward the priests and sang, not the song of rain, but one of light. The ground trembled, and a gust of wind knocked the strangers off their feet. Efwa scattered her last herbs into the wind, and they burst into bright flames that circled the children. The leader screamed as his charms turned to dust. From the river, Asa's voice boomed like thunder. "You dare steal from the chosen." The black mist shattered, and the strangers vanished as if swallowed by the earth. Silence fell. The villagers watched in awe as the river began to glow again, brighter than ever before. Ace's reflection appeared, her eyes stern. Light draws darkness, she warned. But those who walk with truth will never be overcome. Then she was gone, leaving the river calm and golden. Abina held her children close, tears streaming down her face. The world will never stop testing us, she whispered, but you must never forget who you are. Kojo nodded. We are the river's children, he said, and we will never fear the dark again. As dawn broke, Nsunka stood in silence, watching the family who had once been outcasts, now walking as living legends, their path glowing faintly beneath the first rays of sun, a reminder that even in a world of shadows, truth will always rise.